And it's a free day, like really, like in Spain doesn't work on Friday, on Father's Day. It's so important. In Poland, nobody cares when it's the Father's Day. Here, like really, they celebrate it.
Next step is to hook up this little radio device I have to a different, bigger antenna to download data from satellites.
Whoa! From satellites.
Yeah, I never thought that's actually possible with simple homemade stuff, but it actually is. There are these 3 American and 1 Russian weather satellites, which essentially take pictures of the Earth for studying weather, and they just transmit it, without any encryption, like none of it. It's essentially also like public data.
Hello, I'm Michael.
I'm Radek.
And this is the podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you.
As well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day, working our app. Nozbe.
Or whatever else comes to mind.
You see what I did there? Like,
yes, I did. And actually some of our listeners might have seen that too.
Yeah, so we are doing an experiment and recording this also for YouTube. Recording this, we've recorded episodes live, but now we're not in the same place. Yet yes. We're recording. So we'll see how this goes, and if anyone actually cares and wants to see us. And I'm waving hi right now. I'm waving hi to everyone who's listening. If you can wave back in the comments, that would be nice. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, so far we've only recorded a video for the podcast like 3 times a year when we are in the same place. So every half a year on the Nozbe reunion, and sometimes on special occasions like when I've been at your home or when we both have been in San Jose for WWDC. And in situations like that, but we've published on YouTube the podcast, but only with audio. And no one cared. And so we thought that maybe we try to actually publish with video every week. And we're not sure if we're going to stick with it. We're not sure.
It's an experiment.
Yeah, it's an experiment.
Yeah, but let's see. It's out of our comfort zone. Normally we're but actually normally we're like that. I mean, we don't dress anything official. We're just there sitting talking to these mics. Sometimes we have to pre-punch the mics because they don't work very well. But that's all we do.
Yeah, that would be a funny bit for the pre-show, which would not be appreciated in audio form.
Yeah, I have to pre-punch the mic. Yeah. So speaking of WWDC, Apple announced dates, which actually in retrospect it wasn't like it was obvious these dates are going to be these dates. I mean, really, yes. No rocket science there. But we have made we had a mature discussion about this. If we should both go to WWDC this year, just as we did last year. And our decision is...
No, not this year.
Yeah, we're not going this year. We got stuff that we have to work on. We don't have that much stuff to be talking to Apple about there. And we do want to go. I mean, everybody wants to go to California. But
that's why there was the sigh, because of course we want to go.
Of course we want to go to California. I mean, who doesn't want to go to California in June?
Yeah.
But we decided to think better of it. We have stuff to work on, and we would like to go next year with more power, with more questions, with more stuff to show and or to show for. So this year we're skipping it. We're gonna watch the keynote from the comforts of our homes, and next year we'll try to go and we'll try to have cool stuff to show next year. So yeah,
exactly. And one last bit of news before we jump into our topics is that by the time this episode is released, we probably will have already released Nozbe 3.7, which has some cool new stuff.
Yeah, it has a dark mode.
Yeah, sure.
That's the best feature ever. Dark mode, man. It's dark. Nozbe is dark. Never underestimate the power of the dark side.
No, stop.
That was Star Wars, man. Everybody loves Star Wars except for you.
No, Star Wars is terrible.
Yeah, I know you hate it. So that's why I put it there. So anyway, it's dark. Nosby is dark. I'm showing this to our YouTube people. It's dark.
Our editor will have fun figuring out if there isn't something in the screenshot that should be blurred since we're putting it on YouTube.
Damn, I didn't think about that.
Oh, well, that's not your problem to take care of.
Okay, so the dark mode it was my idea, or it's kind of it wasn't my idea. It was idea like from years ago already. Yeah. But I was so passionate about it because I have the iPhone X. You also have the iPhone X, and I really like. Yeah. I began to like using apps in dark mode on the iPhone X, so that's why the idea. But Nosby 3.7 has some other cool features.
Yeah, I guess the most important thing for me at least is that mentions, collaboration in teams using mentions works better because we've had it since always, but like nobody knew about it. So now there's, above the keyboard on iOS, you have the @ sign and there's an auto completion for it. And it's not sure if it's going to ship with 3.7, but it's implemented essentially that all of the mentions are highlighted and then in the new comments, they're on the top. So it works much better.
Yeah, it's very cool because if somebody has a task and they mention you in the comment, it means they might need your feedback there. But because the mentions were not in any way highlighted, so they would just, I would forget about them, for example. And people mention me in a few tasks because very often they just need like an input from me, for example, in my case. And now the cool thing is not only that I will receive push notification, which already was before, but now if in the section of new comments in Nosby, they're on top of all new comments. So I can deal with these things first, which makes perfect sense if you think about it. And then I can deal with any other unread comments. So it's really cool. This way, people before that, people would very often delegate a task to me, which wasn't actually for me, just to get my attention. Now they don't need to anymore. They're not hacking the system anymore. They keep the delegation of the task because they're responsible ultimately for doing the task, but they mention me and then they know I will see the mention. So it's really, really cool. And it's really useful. And this kind of small tweaks in this feature, they made sense.
All right, let's not get too deep into it. But actually, we're thinking of making an episode in a few weeks talking about the way we use Nosby at Nosby. Because we discussed recently how we use Nosby personally for our non-work stuff. But actually, the way we use the app we make to organize our work in the company, we've discussed this, in many times sort of bits spread around, but we've never fully explained our system, how we manage our stuff in the company. So I guess that's worth talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, Nosby 3.7, the best Nosby ever.
Yes, and it's dark, and Michael and 5 other people are super excited about it.
Exactly.
All right. So we are not going to San Jose this year, but let's keep talking about travel. Simpler, easier travel than going to the other side of the globe.
And especially that we have talked about apps for travel in the last episode. And because you start to having such a nomad life that I never have a clue where you are. And I am starting to travel a lot. I mean, right now in March, I'm going to travel to my hometown for Easter. After that, I'm going to travel back home just for a week. After this week, I'm going to travel back to our Nosby reunion. Then I'm going to travel for a weekend with my wife in Hamburg. Then I'm going to be back, but then I'm going to travel again. So a few travels are happening, yet I still have to work. So, and you also... we never know where you are, and yet still you get some stuff done. So we'll talk about that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So last week we talked about using technology to make travel easier, but those mostly for travels with other people, for big faraway travels that have to be sort of managed and organized and such. But there's a different kind of travel, a different sort of trip, which I've been doing more and more lately over the last year, which is this sort of nomadic lifestyle travel, which is, I've been, as you said, I'm often away from this home base of the universe and just around the country, in different cities in Poland mostly, for 1 day, 2 days, for a week. And I really like it. Just a few years ago, it would be unthinkable for me because, as you know, and as we've discussed a few months ago when we discussed values and how we figure out what we want, like what projects we want to do and such, I'm easily overwhelmed, and traveling a lot is overwhelming. And yet this has become really much easier for me and really quite stress-free. And it didn't happen, it sort of happened by accident mostly last year. A few changes that I've made that made it so much easier that I can just decide, sometimes a few hours before, that actually happens sometimes, that a few hours before I decide to go out for a few days to a different city, and I still have my work to do, right? Like I couldn't be traveling so much and have a normal job. Well,
office.
It's not a normal job, but still, like even working remotely, I can take 20 or 20 something days off in a year. And last year I've been quarter of the year away from home, and this year it's probably going to be like third of the year or more.
Yeah, and if you would just take vacation, like you wouldn't have time. You would have to have some sabbatical or some unpaid leaves or something like that if you wanted to do that. And yeah, the cool thing about Nozbe is that you don't have to go to office because we don't have one, and you can travel from anywhere. You can work from anywhere. As long as the job is done. And right now you're very busy because we're doing lots of cool stuff, which we cannot talk about. And you're very needed in the team. So your work is very anyway, in such a company as ours, it's in such a small company, everyone's input is needed all the time. Like we all are very important part. That's why, for example, in one of our values, it's important to clearly say if you're on vacation or if you're not on vacation, because when you work remotely, the lines blur between private life and work life. But still, people expect on the other side of the screen, people expect you deliver stuff. So if you don't do that, then the whole thing just collapses because we're a small team and your input is important, and especially like you really have an important job right now. But everyone's input is important. So and I can see that from my point of view. If I take too much on myself, or if, for example, my private life overwhelms me, then I'm just falling behind, and then my team falls behind because they need my feedback, and then everything just goes to it doesn't go well. Yeah,
but it's true about my role in the sense that I can see that changing over time. How, for example, like 2-3 years ago, when we were working on the Remag project, and that was my main job most of the time. I worked much more sort of alone.
Yes, that's true.
The vast majority of my work was working by myself. And so it would be easier to be wherever because, my input is not needed sort of all the time,
on a daily basis, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I could in principle most of the time just check in for 10 minutes a day and otherwise do be completely away, and once a week dump everything I've done, and that'll be fine. And now it's not possible because I'm involved in everything, which is difficult. But yeah, I do, as we all do in Nozbe, work remotely. And I've decided that, it allows for some interesting lifestyle choices that I don't have to be stuck to one place, one city, one office, but I can be traveling a lot. And I decided, hey, let's sort of capitalize on it and actually do that. and do more of that. And the most important goal here with the changes and such that I want to discuss is this works if like you have to have confidence, because one part of travel, one reason why it's so overwhelming is that it's very out of norm, it's very out of routine, and there's many things you have to take care of, right? There's many things that are different that you have to figure out. How to get to different places, how you have to be on time for the train, you have to get somewhere to get your accommodation, to sleep, normally at home it's sometimes like small silly things. Like when you're at home, that when you're hungry and you work from home, then the kitchen is there and you have some system figured out to buy groceries and get them to you. And when you're traveling, and especially like it's different when you're on, serious business travel and you're in expensive hotel and you eat at restaurants all the time. But when you when you travel a lot, when it's sort of this nomadic lifestyle sort of a trip, you also have to be considerate about expenses. And so like even small things like figuring out where to and when to eat, like everything just becomes more difficult. And you have to have a system to that gives you confidence that everything is taken care of, you don't have to worry about anything. You have to have a system that takes very little time to prepare for the trip, and that it has very little overhead during the trip. Because if you're still working and everybody is surprised that today you're in a different city and you probably work 8 hours a day, then if there's a lot of overhead during the trip, because you have to go from one place to another place during the day, to like change places to work, to get something to eat, and etc., then all of the free time during the day is squeezed. So you have to figure it out. Okay. So with that long preamble, a few changes happened last year when we discussed automation and simplifying and all of the systems. And that had interesting effects on traveling easily and stress-free. One thing is that I now have a proper iPad, and I figured out how to work on iPad, how to do pretty much everything except for programming, which is most of my work, but not all of my work, on iPad. And that's interesting because first of all, I can do really short trips, like over the weekend or something, without my Mac, which is really big and heavy, and not feel like I'm robbed of technology.
The 15-inch MacBook Pro is thinner and whatever, but it's still a big machine.
Yeah, it is. And all of that translates to iPhone too. So for non-work trips like Panama, where I just had my iPhone, I can do much more on an iPhone too. And even when I am on this nomadic trip and I have my Mac, sometimes like you spend more time than usual, sort of going from place to place. And sometimes I'm on a tram, and I have 15 minutes, and I won't take my iPad from my backpack to do some work on a public bus or something. But I can still do sort of more, use this time to get something done on the iPhone. Not sure if you remember when I was in Wrocław and we had the two new programmers, and there was a call, and I jumped in and I was in a tram. And it would be very, very difficult to not bring my Mac at all on such a trip, because it will be difficult to figure out like a week's worth of tasks for which I don't need a Mac. But even then, when I'm on a train or a bus getting from one city to another, it's much easier to be productive during travel. On a train, on a bus, on a train station, like in a cafe waiting for the train bus, on iPad than on the Mac, because it's less bulky. There's no setup. Like, I'm always connected to the internet because it has LTE.
Yes.
And it's much easier. Like, I remember, for example, once I was going from Wrocław to Łódź, and I had to change trains twice. And then before that, I was like waiting for the train on a cafe. And when I have my iPad, it's like I'm just folding it and I just hold it in my hand walking between trains, and I sit down and I continue working. And it wasn't a big deal. And like, you wouldn't do it on a Mac.
No, and of course, something to record everyone else. I mean, just to remind everyone else, just for the sake of reminding, if you're buying an iPad, get the version with LTE. I know it's $130 more. I know it's costly. I know Apple really just is not nice with that, but doesn't matter. It's like the difference is so important. Like, the Wi-Fi only it's annoying, because then the barrier of entry is very, very big, because you have to search for the Wi-Fi. Maybe there's no Wi-Fi signal. Maybe there is no hotspot or whatever, or maybe you have to tether the Wi-Fi from the phone. So don't do that. Like, the cool thing about what you're saying about the iPad, you open it, it's instantly on, and it's on the line. It's online, so you can use it just right there. So this is really cool. And now in Europe with free roaming, it's just so easy. Like, there's no problem. So it just works. It just works online. So this is the best thing ever. The fact that you can have the iPad with LTE. So
if you're just buying an iPad to watch YouTube, get the cheapest one or buy a used one. But if you are trying to buy into this iPad only lifestyle and try to feel how it is, how it changes things like travel, just assume that the iPad Pro does not cost $650 as it says on the website. Assume it costs the $900 or whatever it costs to get the iPad Pro and the cellular and the smart keyboard and maybe the pencil. Just assume that that's the price, because you need all of that to truly feel the difference.
Exactly, to really feel the benefits of this machine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The second thing, which we've also discussed extensively, is workflows and automation. And the thing is, one of the reasons why travel is exhausting and overwhelming is because when you have certain routines, they get destroyed during travel because you don't have the context. And for me, one of perhaps the most important set of routines, habits during the day is the evening and morning routine, which is planning the next day, filling in the magic spreadsheet, and in the morning, opening the plan for the day to see the plan, and in the evening, again, planning the next day, tracking habits, whether I wake up at 8, whether I did plan tomorrow, a few things which I want to track the habits that I want to establish. Journaling, weekly review. And those I've changed so that they are 100% digital, and all of that except for journaling is on iPhone. It lives on the iPhone, and I always do it on the iPhone and not in a paper, in a paper journal or on the Mac as before. And the journaling / weekly review I do on my iPad, and I always do that on the iPad. And what that means is that even though it is still harder to keep those routines and keep those habits during travel, it's much easier than before, because it still is on the same devices. Nothing changes. I still wake up, I take my iPhone, I open through the workflow shortcut the plan for the day, and I start checking off the main points for the day. this really helps. Like this is a really sort of fundamental habit, and even more important during travel, because if you're traveling, then you maybe have some plans for the evening, or maybe you have to split work such that you work a little in the morning and then you work a little in the evening because you want to go out during the day. When you pre-plan, when you analyze your plan for the day and put it sort of on paper or digital paper, it's much easier to go through it with confidence and without feeling stressed that, oh, maybe there's something else I need to do. Maybe there's something else I'm forgetting. You have confidence that everything is all right because you have this written up using the same system as every single day during travel or not. Having this digital and having this on iOS and not on your bulky computer and never anything on paper, much easier.
Yeah, and the additional benefit is that, again, paper don't sink. So like
yeah, paper don't sink.
This is the key. So if you have if you have it in a digital form, it's there. You can get back to it, later. If you want to get back to your notes or to your journal entry from like 2 months ago, you can do it at this instant. It doesn't matter where you are again, right? And so it's not like you have a paper journal where it's like they're hidden in this closet or something like that. So. So really, for me, being paperless and having all this information, and having the way we discussed Scanbot and Evernote, like having this stick that you get a paper from somebody. The first thing you do is pull out your iPhone and snap a picture of it. You Scanbot or Evernote or wherever you put this thing on. Like having this already, this is a lifesaver, because then you can refer to this information, get back to this information, even when you misplace the paper. You don't need the paper anymore. So it's really like going paperless is good for you anyway, even if you're sticking, if you're sitting in the same place all the weekdays. But increasingly, if you're leaving this place, because then you have it on you every time, and it sinks.
That's right. All right. Now is the most important part. I guess I should have started with it. Is the packing system.
Exactly. I was waiting for that.
Yeah. I should have prepared my notes better for this episode. I'm sorry.
No. This is good. I mean, you're building the climax. This is important. But now the thing comes.
Yeah. Now this is key. Yeah, that's right.
All right.
So, if it takes a long time to pack, or packing is annoying, or packing is stressful because you're not sure if you've remembered everything, it's going to be much less fun to travel often, to travel a lot, to travel easily and stress-free. It's always going to be stressful that you forgot something, or even the fact that it takes time to pack. You have to remember that, okay, tomorrow I'm leaving, so this evening I have to start packing so that I'm sure I have everything. It's fine when you do a couple of big trips a year, but when you travel a lot, just for a few days, just somewhere, that doesn't fly. It's too hard. You need a packing system. So the first step in the evolution to the nomadic lifestyle, of course, is having the checklist. And I've done that for years, and that was something I probably picked up from you. I think even before I worked at Nosby, I think you've written something in Productive magazine about
could be
packing checklist. Could be. Well,
yes, but I had it was when we had before we had Nosby How templates, we had this public Nosby thing, and I was publishing my public Nosby template for packing, and I had this video. It's a very cool. We'll link to this video in the show notes.
Yeah. It was a video.
I'm really fat there, so you can see Fat Mike, and it was my packing list at that time to travel. Yeah.
Yeah, really ugly it was back then.
Yeah, it was good. And you remember, it was a packing checklist for a trip, and it was a trip to Japan. So it was a trip.
Right.
So it was really a big trip, like to different continent, and then a long travel. And yet I was showing how I managed to fit everything in a carry-on bag, and why it was so important to have that on a carry-on.
Just in the carry-on. That's funny, but we'll
exactly,
get to that.
Exactly. I'm sure you'll just up my system right now. So let's go.
Yes, I will. So having a packing checklist is essential because if you have a checklist, it takes much less time, and you have confidence because you know that when you've run through the checklist, you have every single thing that you need.
Yes.
And there's no question. And before, it will be stressful for me. That there's always, did I forget this? Did I remember that? And there's always this annoying feeling when I'm outside the door waiting for the elevator and I feel this something in my gut that maybe I forgot something. And this is the last chance to go back. And now I don't have that because when I wait for the elevator, I take out my phone, I take the one last check at the short checklist in Nozbe, and when I run through the checklist, I'm like, okay,
done.
Like I have confidence and I don't think about it anymore because it never failed me. Because there's everything on the checklist that I need and nothing that I don't need.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, just a short example. In 1 month, I'm going to race on a triathlon, and triathlon. These are 3 sports, and I have a special triathlon checklist. We're going to link to this in the show notes. And it's the same thing. If you forget something on a triathlon, it might just blow your race. Yeah. Like really, just one tiny thing. There are 3 sports, so you have to have stuff for 3 sports. And if you forget just one thing, it might completely blow you. Like really, it might just be over for you. Like the race is done. So it's really important to have the checklist because again, this gives me this confidence because the triathlon starts at 8 a.m. and I'm leaving home at 6 a.m. So leaving at 6 a.m. half sleepy, I know I've run through the checklist. I'm good. And that's it. So it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. And the longer you do it, the better it works because...
And the better checklist gets.
Exactly. Because at the beginning, you don't have full confidence in this system. You still have the gut-wrenching feeling, right?
Yeah.
But every time that you've forgot something or almost forgot something, you append it to the checklist and you know that it never happens again. And after a couple of trips, the checklist is good. And it works the other way around too. The more you travel, the more you realize that bringing lots of stuff with you is annoying. And the more you remove from the checklist that you realize that you don't need. And the more and more refined the checklist becomes, and the more it has everything that you need and nothing that you don't need. Okay. So actually, also the format of the checklist changed for me. The way I do it, I was thinking of sharing the exact template for Nozbe, but there's a lot of things specific to me, so I won't share it exactly, but I'll describe it. So there's a Nozbe template with 8 little tasks, and every time I begin travel, I make a new project with that checklist. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the way it's structured, like before I had a much longer list, but instead it's sort of grouped into little sort of groups. So for example, there's a task called clothes, right? Mm-hmm. And at the beginning of the task, there's an emoji with the number 6, okay? And in the task, there's a checklist with 6 items that I always have to remember, right? So if it was just a long template, it would be much more difficult to go through, but it's sort of grouped. So clothes, and I have, t-shirts, check, socks, check, etc. And there's another task like electronics, and there's, got charger, got this cable, that cable, I have everything, right? We'll get back in a second to the exact details of what I have with electronics and stuff, but essentially there's 9 tasks with most important groups, and there's not a lot of stuff in there, but there's a small checklist in each task. There's another Nozbe template with a much longer list of things which I rarely need, but I might need for long trips, not for nomadic lifestyle trips, but for long trips. I also have a checklist or a Nozbe template for travel, for other things in the travel, like a small post-travel checklist, and a few tasks that I always have to figure out something about the trip before the trip. And I also have a workflow where I just put a name of that trip and it just creates 2 new projects in Nozbe from those templates.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. But the checklist is the most important part. The other stuff is sort of, over time you evolve it, right? But then you realize that the checklist is good, but it's not enough, because still every time you have to pack everything.
Yes.
And what I realized is that instead of just having a checklist with a list of things you have to pack, why not just have pretty much everything that you need to pack already packed?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the idea here is that, every time you travel, there's some toiletries that you need, the toothbrush and toothpaste and the floss and, all of that sort of stuff, and some electronics like chargers, cables, whatnot, right?
Dongles,
adapters, etc., right? And so instead of just having a checklist to pack them, I got 2 little packs, like just small bags, like Toiletries Bags.
Yeah.
Which are always pre-packed. One with all of the toothbrush, toothpaste, floss, etc., and the other with the chargers and cables and stuff. And there's also some things that are always packed in the backpack, like some drugs that always good to have on you, like ibuprofen and whatnot, and some other things that just always would be on the checklist, and instead of always packing them, they're always packed. And so when I prepare for travel, I just throw in those 2 bags in my backpack, and I pack my clothes, and I pack my Mac, and I pack my iPad, and I pack a bottle of water, and I can walk away. That's it. It's just amazing how little time it takes then, because even though things like cables and chargers, like it doesn't take much space now, there's probably like 20 or 25 little items that I would have to pack every time, or maybe probably more, that are just always packed. So I don't have to pack them. Only clothes and the electronics, which I use on a regular basis, I have to pack. So the point here is to just get duplicates of all of the things like that. Like it doesn't cost that much to get an extra toothbrush and get an extra iPhone charging cable, an extra charger, and just always have it packed. Like the only thing that I have to add to those little bags when I pack is the Mac charger, because it costs like $90, and so I'm not going to get a duplicate of that. It's not that big of a deal.
Exactly.
So that's one thing. But another thing worth mentioning is that traveling backpack only is the superior way. You mentioned packing just in a carry-on. No, that's lame. Like, you don't need that much stuff. We discussed it when talking about the trip to Panama. Okay, I packed for 2 weeks for the other side of the world in a backpack. You can fit everything in a backpack. You just have to know what you're doing, and you have to not bring all of the stuff that you think you need but don't actually need.
Yep.
Just pack simply, and you can shave a lot of volume by getting little stuff. Like, instead of packing 2 big chargers, I got a Anker charger with 2 different USB ports.
Yes.
I got charging cables which are retractable, so they take little space when packed. I have a small toothbrush, and I have a small toothpaste, and I have all of the toiletries, the shaving cream, the shower gel, whatever. You can get all of that in just tiny little tubes, and that takes up so little space when you know what you're doing. And also, the way I sort of hard to describe on audio, but the way I pack clothes, I sort of stack them together and put it in this sort of bag that you can squeeze, and then I put that in the backpack, and this way it also takes very little space, right? And again, when you don't have some sort of massive old PC, but you just bring your iPad and the MacBook Pro, that also doesn't take much space. So you really can pack everything in a backpack. It's not really that hard as I thought it was. And it's really superior because for me, especially for traveling often, it really gives you a sense of freedom. It's sort of this lightweight feeling, because when you have even a small carry-on bag, you have to tow it behind you all the time. And when you have a backpack, when you put it on your back, you don't feel it, right? It's just there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a healthy back, it's not a problem, and you always have 2 free hands. And having to tow a carry-on bag behind you all the time, running through the airport, getting from one place to another in the city, it makes it so much less fun. And it's fine when you're traveling to the other side of the world and you're just going through the airport to the taxi and to your hotel. It's fine. But when traveling a lot, like really learning how to travel backpack only, it's much superior.
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that's the thing. So I might revise my policy on that, because I have a good carry-on and it's very nice and very comfortable. But as you said, the thing about it is that you have to schlepping it behind, And if you have a backpack, it's just you have it on your back. You have your hands free. You can run if you need to. And the modern backpacks, they have like additional straps, so like it's not really heavy on your on your shoulders. So this is completely legitimate thing. And now, for example, also the types of clothes that I'm taking are the clothes that you can wash very quickly. So and they can dry quickly. So if you do that, then you're also saving lots of headaches, because with these clothes you can just very quickly wash them in a sink, and then hang them in the in the toilet, and then next day they are there, waiting for you to be used. So yeah, this also the clothes you put on yourself, like this kind of system. Also think which clothes you take. This all makes it easy, and also I completely agree that you should buy duplicates of stuff. So duplicates of cables, of charging chargers. It's so much important. I mean, it's so much easier. Like that, you just have a few pouches, as you said. You have a pouch for that, and pouch for that. You just put them this pouch, and you're confident everything is there. So this way, like for example, I've optimized the hell out of my small pouch for my iPad. So in this pouch, I have dongles I need, the charger for the Apple Watch, a small charger for the Apple Watch, and a few other things, and it's all in my one small pouch. And I have this in my iPad bag, and it doesn't weigh a lot, so it's always there. And if I need it, I have stuff there. So I can really charge it. I can charge the watch. I can I can connect to any kind of projector if I want to project. So it's like it's cool to be refining this and just finding out which exactly cables you need or which dongles you need, and just don't bring anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll try to quickly run through some of the things that I always have pre-packed. And I'll try to add links to Amazon or AliExpress for some of those things. So the first thing, iPhone, and there's one item on the checklist, which is to make sure that I have a bill inside. So I mentioned this before, but some listeners might not know. I don't have a separate wallet. The back of my iPhone has slots for my ID and my credit card, and that's all I need. But sometimes you might need cash. So underneath, exactly what Michael is showing. And underneath the case, there's a 100 zloty bill, just in case. Sometimes it's useful, okay?
Yeah.
Number 2, iPad and Mac, just throw it in. Number 3, Bose headphones. I can't live without them. They're always on me, so they don't take any space in the backpack. I don't take the carrying case. I don't need it. And there's one item on the checklist to make sure it's charged to the max. Number 4, keys. And on my keychain, there's 3 little items that are very useful. One of them is the lightning to jack adapter, because Apple hates us, and sometimes I want to connect my iPhone to some audio source, like I don't know, on a party or something, and then you need this adapter that you never know where it is, and there's this little adapter that goes on the keychain that's just like a jack, and then you attach it to the jack, and it's always on your keychain. The second thing is a tiny flash drive that's just hanging from my key, so I always have it with me, which on one side has USB-A, and on the other side it has USB-C. So I can connect it to my living in the future MacBook Pro, and I can connect it to any other device in existence. And the third thing, which actually Martin from the company showed us, is this tiny little gadget from AliExpress, which is this, it looks like a key, but it actually is a tiny screwdriver, a tiny knife, and a tiny bottle opener that just sort of closes into a key.
Very
it's really cool.
I haven't seen that. Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. Next, there's the Toiletries bag or pouch. That I guess that's a good name. And there's there's stuff like Q-tips and shaving gear and toothpaste and deodorant and interdental brush and floss and nail cutter and hairbrush and all of those are the couple other things, and all of those are tiny little versions of those that all fits in this like really small thing, and everything is always pre-packed, and just throw it in, okay? And in the name of the task, I have the emoji with the number 4 in it, because there's more than 4 items on the checklist, but I assume that everything on this is already there, and there's just 4 things just to make sure, which is if I'm sure I have toothpaste and deodorant and some other things, right? The most important things that if I don't have them, it's not going to be nice. And the other things I just assumed they are there. Then there's electronics, and again, separate pouch for it. So I have the 2 most important, the sort of highlighted items on the checklist, which is to bring the charger for the Mac, unless I'm not taking my Mac, and to make sure that my power bank, the battery, is charged. Okay, and then aside from that, I have a jack-to-jack cable for my headphones. Sometimes, rarely, battery runs out, I have to connect it, or I want to share the audio with someone else, whatever. Takes no space at all. USB-C to USB-C cable for my Mac for charging the Mac. So it's separate from the charger. The charger is, I don't have a duplicate, but the cable I have, and it's always packed. I have 2 USB to Lightning cables, which are retractable cables. So they fold in nicely, and they're for charging my iPhone and my iPad. I have an Anker 24-watt charger. So it is like 20% bigger than the iPad charger, but it's twice as powerful. So from one charger, I can charge both my iPhone and my iPad at almost full speed. The iPad not at full speed, but the same as standard iPad charger. But there's just one, and it takes much less space than 2 of them. There's a USB to micro USB cable, also retractable, to connect the power bank or the headphones. Again, retractable, takes no space at all. And there's a tiny jack splitter. Rarely useful, but it's there. Then there's a backpack. So there's some things that I always have pre-packed in the backpack. And there's always tissues like Kleenex,
Yeah.
Some drugs / emergency kit like ibuprofen and allergy drugs and small band-aids for like small injuries, stuff like that. There's always some cash. There's a pen. There's a small cleaning cloth for whatever hardware, glasses. There's a USB-A to USB-C adapter, the tiny kind. There's a magic piece of cardboard that opens all of the metro stations in Warsaw, so I can not get the paper tickets but pay with my phone. There's a spoon. Just trust me.
Okay.
It was useful. And there's a tiny, I don't know how you call it, this little sort of circle thing that you can open and close. And it came with the Nosby backpack that I got. And the thing with that is sometimes, like, I don't know, there are situations where it's the sort of time in the year that it's warm but not all day long, and you have this big jacket and you don't know what to do with it when you don't want to have it on you, and you can just clip it to the back of the backpack or whatever else that you need to carry. I don't know, it was useful. Then there's clothes, and there's a checklist for that, and there's a bottle of water, and I mean the same bottle of water that people have seen you drinking on this podcast, which has a carbon filter.
Yes.
So the idea is that you can like essentially pour water from anywhere, and you can safely drink it. And it's good because you gotta stay hydrated during travel. And then that's the end of the checklist. But during the project, the travel project template, there's one task with the post-travel checklist, and there are the tasks to make sure everything is pre-packed for the next trip. So the idea is not that when I'm preparing for the trip, I'm charging the power bank, I'm getting the new toothpaste, I'm checking if there's still deodorant for the next trip, and there's still like cash in the back of my iPhone. No, after each travel, I have the task to make sure that everything is pre-packed for the next one.
Okay, this is really important. Again, something we already discussed on this show. Like, for example, you prepare tasks for tomorrow, like the day before. This is the same kind of philosophy to make sure that you prepare it right then. So when you have to leave quickly, as you mentioned, the power bank is full, everything is full. Like the pouch is complete. You just throw in the pouch, and you know that it has all the toiletries that you need. So everything is ready for the next one. Yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, like it's literally like this. Like I was not exaggerating. I'm throwing in 2 pouches. I'm throwing in the clothes, the Mac, the iPad, the Mac charger, and the bottle of water, and I'm out. Like that's it. There's just a couple of items that can't be pre-packed. Well, not reasonably, at least.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it. And that's just. It makes a huge difference. Like being able to pack so quickly with so much confidence and so lightweight, just with the backpack. No, not even a carry-on case. And again, having the workflows, the automation, having the iPad, and just again having a system, apps to store the tickets, the confirmations, the reminders that you have to get on a train and whatnot. And all of that just gets easier with experience too. Like you figure out, you get used to it. right? And you figure out little things that you have to do every time. You improve the system, you improve the checklist. You know by heart all of the steps you have to go on the train website to buy it, so that it takes you 2 minutes, and you have confidence which works every time. So you don't have to be paranoid about doing something way in advance. Like recently, I was preparing for a trip, and I wasn't sure until the last moment if I was going that day. And then I realized I did. And I was annoyed. I was annoyed that I have 2 hours until the train. Not because it's too soon. I was like, I'll be done packing in 15 minutes. Why do I have to wait so much for the train? Right? I wish I could leave right then, but I couldn't, right? And that's that's really how you roll. And you also figure out little things about living nomadically, not just preparing for the trip, but living nomadically. And again, might have been probably didn't explain properly, but little things like managing your energy levels during the day. Like when I'm living nomadically, I sleep on friends' couches all over Poland, and there's small things like when I wake up and I don't eat proper breakfast, I realized, I wouldn't do that at home. I wake up, I eat breakfast. But during travel, it's so often I would sleep late, and my hosts are not used to eating breakfast at 8 a.m., so I wouldn't. And then I wouldn't eat proper breakfast. I would just get to work, and then I would be surprised why I feel so weak, I can't concentrate and whatnot. And you learn that you figure out that when I'm traveling there and I'll be staying with a friend, and maybe they're not into eating scrambled eggs at 8 a.m. in the morning, and then that's fine. Before I go to their place in the evening the previous day, I go to the grocery store, I buy the eggs and whatever I need for the breakfast, I put it in their fridge, and I do breakfast for myself or for them if they manage to wake up so early. Like little things like that. You just learn it, and then it works, and then you don't mind that you're in a different place every day, and that you sleep on a different couch, every day for a week. It doesn't matter. Like you figure out what you need to stay productive, to stay sane, to stay confident that everything is taken care of.